Hey, before we get into the episode, I want to tell you about something I'm trying called Podcast Club. Here's why. If you've been on social media, even at all lately, you might have noticed that everything is starting to sound and look the same. It's not about having real conversations anymore. It's about performing for the algorithm, and half of it sounds AI generated. So I wanted to try something different. Podcast Club is like book club, but for this show. Once a week, we'll get together live on Zoom and actually talk. What do you want to go deeper on? Where are you finding that you feel resistance? And how can you take what you've been listening to and actually apply it to your life? It's for women who listen to this podcast and want to be in real conversations with other women like them. If that's you, head to consciousedge.com/club. Pick the days that work for you. I'll save your spot, and I can't wait to see you there.
There's a story that repeats itself over and over again. I hear it all the time from my clients. It's something I used to do, and it's what we're going to talk about today. This idea that when you get through a busy season in your life and you finish up a project, that then you will have time for the other things that are very important to you. Only when that project finishes up, you go right into the next busy thing. And it seems like still there's no time for the things that are most important. Business starts to feel heavy. You don't feel the joy for it anymore. And your body starts to really wear out and get exhausted. So let's dive in. Hey, you leader, entrepreneur, business owner, solopreneur, whatever you call yourself, we know you're a visionary business builder, wealth seeker looking to combine a passion for doing good with leading consciously. It's time to shift from a traditional focus of pure wealth accumulation to one that integrates well-being and fulfillment. You're here for a purpose, and it's time to shine your light. So here we go. Welcome back to the Conscious Edge podcast. I'm your host, Alecia St. Germain, founder of the Conscious Edge. And I remember a time when I was so overscheduled. I used to say constantly, I don't have time and I don't have capacity. Like I couldn't even make a decision about something that someone was asking me. My husband would be like, where should I put this? And I was like, I don't have the capacity to even think about that right now. So I don't have time. I don't have capacity. Those were like my two go-to things. And what I figured out was that I was doing a lot of people pleasing. So saying yes when I really wanted to say no, and then feeling resentful about the yeses that I said. I was overscheduling myself, fear of missing out, right? I didn't want to miss out on anything. And so I was doing too many things and too many new things at the same time. And I was really starting to feel tired and burned out and resentful of my life and not really getting the traction that I wanted in my business or feeling really good about what I was doing. And so I figured out how to start taking things off of my plate and building capacity in a way that made my energy and my personal well-being more sustainable, but made also pouring into my business and other people more sustainable, and really finding the joy in the journey of life. So that's now what I do with the women that I work with inside the Conscious Edge is we take a holistic look at their businesses and start building their capacity in a way that makes them feel the peace and joy of life, puts the most important things back on their plate, and keep them focused and not chasing those shiny objects so that their business actually gets traction and they can start to build more momentum, more money, more wealth, and do it in a way that feels sustainable. So if you are new here, I want to say welcome. And I'm so glad that you found us. This is something that I just love to do, podcasting. I started it a couple years ago now with my friend Jonathan Duggar, who's oftentimes on me for our Mindfulness Matters episodes that happen towards the end of each month, and will also co-host other episodes with me. And we were having such amazing conversations behind the scenes. And I said, hey, you want to start a podcast? And he was resistant to it at first, but I just have really enjoyed being able to connect with my buddy, talk about the same things that we talk about behind the scenes, but then bring it to a bigger audience. And we've had such incredible feedback from people about how much they love the podcast, how much they look forward to it. We took a small break at the beginning of the year for a couple of weeks, and I was getting emails, texts that I'm missing you in my ears on Tuesday mornings. So it's so lovely to know that what we do makes a difference. So if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure that you hit the follow or subscribe button. We do put these episodes out every single week. And it's such a joy to hear from you as well. So reach out and let us know what's landing and join us for Podcast Club. Podcast Club is something that I started because I was feeling the disconnect of one-way communication. As much as I love podcasting, I enjoy it more when I have a guest or Jonathan with me, but I also find it a very easy way for me to create content far faster and easier than writing is for me. But it's also one-way communication. And now social media has evolved to a place where it feels like it's very performative and you're just trying to do some strategy or tactics to connect with the right audience people. And that's not really about the connection that I'm craving from other humans. So I came up with this idea for Podcast Club, and it's like book club, but I joke that it's like book club without the gossip and the hangover that happens. And we get to come together and we talk about the podcast, what's going on in your business and your life, what you're grappling with, what it made you think about, where you might have some questions, and a place for other people to connect with other business owners who are like-minded to connect with each other. It's totally free. So they happen most weeks, and I would love for you to join us for Podcast Club on Thursdays. Currently, it's Thursdays at 1 p.m. You go to consciousedge.com/club and just RSVP and let me know when you're coming to Podcast Club, and we can have those just very organic, meeting, just get to know people. Because that's one of the things I found over the last couple of years is that we have a lot of listeners and I don't know you. And I would love to know you, what your businesses are, what you're up to, what your thoughts are, what you're thinking about things. So that's an opportunity to do that. I hope you will come. I would love it if we could do it in person and I could have you over and we could have the spread of food and drinks and all of that. I totally would, but I do find that there's some benefits to technology and that it gets to connect us wherever you are in the United States and across the globe. But also it has its drawbacks, right? And so that's a lot of what I'm seeing where social media is headed, is that it has taken the humanness out of being human. And I don't like that. Okay. So this relates, what I'm talking about with Podcast Club, this very much relates to what we're going to talk about today around building capacity. I talk a lot about capacity. I did an entire series about capacity. I tout myself as the capacity coach because what I see for so many women that I work with at the core of what is the challenge for them is that they are at capacity and suffering physically, mentally, and it's not that they're not successful. It's not that they don't have amazing businesses, but they look at their life and they wish that they had more time for the things that matter most. And even if they are prioritizing the things that matter most, like family and travel and lifestyle, they're also not satisfied with where their business is. And so they're really grappling with the balance between the two. And so I have found that it really breaks down from a capacity sense into the science of it, which is really how you run your brain. Your brain neurologically is wired for survival. And there are decisions that you make and things that you do that are self-sabotaging from what your goals are, because your primitive brain is wired to just simply survive. It only cares about itself. It's very selfish. And when you're up to bigger things, when you're operating from what I call soul, which is what you're here for, your purpose, the things that bring you fulfillment and joy, and the moments that you stop and slow down and look at how beautiful your life is. And when a project that you're working on comes together so simply and it just feels easy, and the part of you that's up for survival is like, this can't literally be this easy. And so it tries to make it hard, right? But when you're operating from that soul place, like that's what life is all about. And then the third piece of it being strategy. So the business systems and processes and the key things that you put in place to put really infrastructure around soul. Soul without infrastructure, without a strategy around it, is very temperamental. It is going with the feelings of it, not doing it when it doesn't feel right, but not having a way through the hard moments. It can create burnout because you're not taking good care of your body, because the soul's like, I have a body. What does that mean? So it's really that balance of everything that we work on. And so what happens so often is that people overschedule themselves and are doing too many things. And sometimes they're doing some of those things for wrong reasons. They're doing it from a very self-protective place. That's where people pleasing comes in, when you're saying yes and you really should be saying no, and then feeling resentful for it. Those types of behaviors that we do that create a very packed calendar, which I would call that your time capacity. Time capacity is a real thing. And you as an individual only have so much time. Where we start to amplify time or stretch time is when we start to bring in support and help and other people who are also working on the same purpose or mission that we are. Then we can start to expand time. But you yourself have a time capacity. There's a limited amount. From a resource standpoint, financially, we have a financial capacity. And so that's a real thing. But again, when we start to leverage other people's money, then we can expand our access to resources and money. But again, our brain will put barriers in place because it feels unsafe. And so that's a lot of what we have to unpack is, are you on purpose and energetically taking care of yourself from both a physical standpoint, but also a mental, emotional, and spiritual standpoint? Emotionally, what is your capacity? Like, what is your emotional capacity? Essentially is your leadership. How well do you lead yourself and others during unforeseen circumstances, when things aren't going the way that you want them to? How do you emotionally handle that? Do you get swept up in your emotion and shut down and go into one of the fight, flight, fawn, freeze, or feign? Or do you maintain your composure and calm and acknowledge the emotion and then decide strategically what the next move is and use emotions as an indicator? Or do you let the emotions rule you? And then your relational capacity, which is how you interact with others. Again, that's a very closely linked to leadership. It's really how you lead others. So emotional capacity is leadership of self. Relational capacity is leadership of others. And so how do you do all of those things? All of that together, and how you do that is your capacity builder. It's what makes it so that you can handle everything that is on your plate. And if your vision is bigger, go bigger. It is perfectly acceptable to say that this is where my capacity is. This is as far as I want to grow. I just want to enjoy life where I am. Great. But don't beat yourself up or make yourself wrong for it because you think society, other people, or yourself expect more of yourself. Just be satisfied and have gratitude for where you are. If you have a bigger vision and you're not where you want to be and you want to do more, then you have to do the things to build the capacity to do it. You can't just wait for the project to finish up and think that is what is going to build your capacity, because it's not. You're going to keep repeating the same pattern over and over again. So as you are hearing this, I am at InvestorCon 2026 in Phoenix, Arizona. And in preparation for that, I am speaking on the power of not hesitating and taking action now, like living as though life is right now. It's what I call the now advantage. And so in preparation for that, I was really thinking about something valuable that would be so helpful for the audience after they heard my talk, that they would leave with a tool that would support them in building their capacity and getting some of their capacity back in the places where they feel stretched. And so as I was thinking through what this tool could be, I came up with what I call my capacity decision guide. And what I realized after looking at what I know about capacity, the way that I think about it and break it down, and the outcomes that strategically that I have coached clients through, there are essentially 5 outcomes that happen with any task that you have on your plate. Releasing it, either temporarily or permanently, outsourcing it, delegating, leading it yourself, or growing in that particular aspect. So there's 5 basic outcomes that happen with any activity or project. And I wouldn't even say project because we could break a project down into individual activities or actions. So often high functioning women and men, but the high functioning women that I work with primarily, they are doing most of it themselves. They have been told to get support, to delegate, to use other people's money, to use other people's time and energy. They've been taught to leverage, but they don't, by far, a majority are not doing it effectively. And they keep reverting back to doing it themselves because it's faster to do it yourself. If you have tried to hire someone to do it for you, you maybe have had a bad experience with it. The job didn't get done the way you wanted it to. It ended up, in hindsight, you felt like you spent a lot of money for very little results and it didn't work. And so you revert back to doing it yourself. And so what happens when you are doing everything yourself and it's all on you, you are 100% limited by your capacity to show up for your family, your capacity to live the lifestyle that you're trying to achieve through entrepreneurship, your capacity to grow your business or even maintain your business is all limited. And your brain goes into a response of, I have to protect myself at all costs. And so it raises cortisol in the body. It causes disease and ultimately leads to burnout. So there's got to be a better way to do this. So I came up with these 5 different categories of what you would do with a task. And so I want to talk about those 5 categories, and then I will tell you how to get access to the capacity decision guide for yourself as well. So I want to first talk about release. There are tasks and things that you are doing on your plate that do not bring you joy or restoration, and they're taking significant time away from something that is really important, something that is absolutely essential. It is a top priority. It needs to be on your plate. And you're doing it most likely because you feel some sort of obligation or guilt that you have to do this thing. And so in that moment where it doesn't bring you joy and it is taking time and energy away from it, it's probably time to release that thing. Very likely permanently. It's not maybe something that's even yours to carry, and yet you're still doing it. And so part of the work that comes in for someone who is building capacity is getting underneath and figuring out what is the big assumption that you are making that makes you say yes to this thing that is taking time and energy away from more important things and doesn't bring you any joy or restoration. Like if it brings you joy and restoration, even if it's taking time away from things, by all means, maybe it should stay on your plate. But if it's neither of those things, there is probably a big assumption running in the background that makes you say yes. And if you're new and you don't know what a big assumption is, in my world, it is a belief, an if-then statement typically, that runs in the unconscious that defines how you think the world works and the way that you exist in it. And it drives your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So these are things like, if I don't blank, then something bad happens. Like if I don't do it myself, then it won't be done right. And so I do this thing. If I don't say yes or help someone with XYZ, if I don't do it for them, then they will suffer and I am a bad person. Those types of if-then statements that operate in such extremes, but feel like your life depends on it, like your physical safety, your mental safety, your sense of belonging to community or to a family unit, those types of black and white thinking will create that yes when you want to be saying no. And so the work is learning that you will be okay and that you can set some boundaries and you can communicate expectations and you can uphold those things and hold people accountable without bad things happening to you. And even if there are some minor consequences that come up, that you are okay, even if those things happen. Now, if you have something that brings you joy and restoration, but it's taking significant time and energy away from something that maybe is a bigger vision, and you need to focus on that other thing right now, maybe you do have to make the hard choice to release something temporarily, which is where I call park it. So it's worthy, you love it, you want to do it, but maybe now is not the right time to do it. And that's okay too. So we can release things in a couple different ways. This is one of the things that so many people who are overscheduled are not doing. They're not saying no to the things that don't belong to them. And they're not saying not right now to the things that are important, but maybe this isn't the right time to do it. Very often a client will come to me and they will say, hey, I had this new idea, or I thought about building this type of business, because entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs. So they are always looking at different ways to make money and do things. And so I will say, okay, let's talk about this for a second. And I will ask them a couple of different questions and we will go through and we will sort through, is this really something to do right now? And maybe it's just a great idea and you really like the dopamine hit that comes from the new idea? Or is this something that has merit right now? Or is this like a for later type thing? And so very often, those are the kinds of decisions that I am helping people make when those new ideas come up. Now, I want to talk about the difference between outsourcing and delegating, because this is a very big problem within the entrepreneurial space when people hear that they need to hire out work. And so what very often happens is people are trying to use inexpensive labor, like virtual assistants that are offshore, not located in the United States, lower investment type virtual assistants, employees that are less expensive, like just call it what it is, trying to keep it cheap, right? And what's happening is they're using these kinds of services to delegate tasks that they don't want to do themselves. They aren't very good at it, or they're not effective at it. They don't know how to do it. And so you're delegating to someone else to do these tasks that you really don't have the capacity to lead. You don't have the experience. You don't have the expertise. You don't know what done looks like. You don't know how to drive results. So how can you lead someone else to do that when you're delegating to them? So I think of like delegating as like you hand off tasks, but you're still leading the person doing it. So you're training them how to do it, and you're putting the time and investment into developing that person. You're growing them into the ideal person for that role. They may or may not come with experience, but even if they come with experience, sometimes if you're not leading the task, we're asking, very often entrepreneurs are asking people who are employee type mindsets to do entrepreneurial things. Like entrepreneurial means that you are acting as an entrepreneur inside of an organization. And asking someone who has an employee mindset to do that is not going to be very effective. And so you end up very frustrated and you're thinking, it doesn't work. I'm not happy with the service that I'm being provided by this virtual assistant. I'm going to go back to doing it myself. Those types of tasks, those types of results that you want to drive in your business that you're not skilled at, even if you are skilled at it, if you are so busy, you don't have time to properly train someone and lead someone to do it, then that actually falls into the outsource category. That means you're not effective at it, or it's too costly for you to grow into it. You don't have the capacity to learn how to do it, to learn how to lead someone else to do it, to train someone to do it. And so that means it falls into expert work. It means you need to hire it out to someone who is entrepreneurial, who already knows how to operate in that way to drive that result. And you hire it out to an expert, which means it's going to be a bigger investment. But here's the trade-off. And here's where your mindset has to shift around this is when you do this, you're going to, in the long run, probably end up paying the very least the same amount, or you're going to get such great results because this is an expert who has got a proven track record for driving results and able to lead you, who is not good at that particular area of your business, through it and get what they need from you to create those results. They're going to pay for themselves. They're going to increase business cash flow in such a way that they will end up paying for themselves and become profitable for you. So you do have to vet that person. Don't just assume because they have a really great sales pitch and that you like them, that's actually who you should hire. You're going to have to go through and vet those types of people that you are outsourcing. In either case, if you're hiring for within your business and you're going to be leading it, or you're outsourcing it to an expert that's going to drive the results, you need to vet these people. So don't assume the first person you talk to, you're like, oh, I'm relieved. I have a really good person. I think they're going to do great. And then you just hire them right away. I recommend interviewing at least 3 or more so that you have comparisons between what is being offered and what is available to you. Fully vet these people before you take that plunge and give anybody a dime, because you want to get really good, you want really good help, and you want to be a good steward of the money that you are spending. So often people look for that fast relief because you're waiting to hire until you have a desperate need. And in that desperation, you're saying yes without vetting people and spending money unnecessarily. So hiring that expert, because they have invested heavily in themselves, they have put years of experience. They have put their resources into honing their craft, and they are great at what they do. They are going to be a bigger investment for you, but they are going to save you time and frustration, and they are going to be able to drive the results that you could not. So that is when you really should be outsourcing. And if I am guessing that every single person listening to this who has hired a virtual assistant that didn't work out could probably go back in hindsight and realize that because you didn't have the capacity to lead and to properly train them, that you probably should have hired an expert, or you hired an expert, but you didn't go through the full vetting process because you hired out of desperation. That was exactly what went wrong in that scenario. Now, if you have something that you have had on your plate, you are very good at doing it, you're effective at it, you drive results, you know what done looks like, you know what result you're looking for, that is a better scenario for you to actually delegate. So whether that looks like hiring a contractor like a virtual assistant, or if that looks like hiring an employee into your company to fill a specific role that you're going to then lead them and train them fully, that's a better scenario for delegating. But that doesn't mean that you have the leadership skills, the relational capacity to effectively manage. I don't even like the word manage, facilitate that to happen, to effectively lead those people. Because if you are not good with setting expectations and holding people accountable, you're not going to properly train that person, and then you're not going to hold them accountable for that work. You will maybe step in and take over. You'll be afraid to give them feedback because you're afraid they're going to quit. So you won't give feedback, and you'll just quietly correct it in the background and not say anything to them or give them that any kind of feedback. That is also not going to be effective. So that's a place, again, where your work in leadership is learning to set the boundaries, set the expectations, and be able to hold people accountable. Did a really good episode on relational capacity that I'll link in the show notes for you. So that is a place where, again, the big assumptions that I was talking about earlier will come up, and they will cause this breakdown in your ability to lead other people, this breakdown in relational capacity. And again, if you've ever tried to hire a virtual assistant and it didn't work out well, that you may have accidentally trained them to be incompetent because you didn't have the capacity to lead them well and to build that relational capacity with them. Now, lead and grow. Those are the other two of the 5 that I was talking about. So lead is something you are skilled at, you love doing it, or only you can do it. So speaking and doing podcasts and coaching my clients, those are things that I love to do. No one else can really do it. I probably could train someone else to even coach, but I would have to train them how I think. And I don't really have a need for that right at this point. But if my company got bigger, I got more clients than I could handle that would stretch my time capacity, then I would have to bring on a support coach, and I would have to be able to train another coach how to do what I do. But those types of things that you love to do, I work with a lot of real estate clients. I have clients who they love to do the design work. They don't love to do swinging hammers and doing the actual rehab. They want to just lay out the design. That's where their expertise is. There's other people who love to do the work. They enjoy it. Their business is where they want it. It's producing the income that they want. By all means, swing the hammers. If that is cathartic for you and brings you restoration and joy, and that's what you're made for, great, do it. As long as it's not limiting you from something else that's also important to you. There does come a time as we get older where it hurts more for me to kneel on my knees. When I was working on getting my camper ready for camping this summer, and I was scrubbing something down. I was sitting on my knees, and I was I literally bruised my knees because there's less cushion there now. And I was like, ooh, that hurts. So there comes a point where the body breaks down. Maybe you won't be able to do as much of the physical stuff anymore, and you're going to have to train someone else to do it. But leading is the things that you are good at. And when I say good at, it means you drive the desired results that you want and you love doing it, or only you can do it. It's just maybe you've got to be the one that does certain things. Then you have to find the angle of it and say, like, this is just part of my job. This is maybe the undesirable part of my job that I just have to do, like hiring and firing. Only you can hire and fire when you're a small business owner. Typically, there's not somebody else that can do it. So you might not love that aspect of that job, but I would challenge you to say that if you worked on your leadership skills, there's a place where you could see that even if you have to fire someone, that accountability that you are holding them to is an act of love, so that they can go out and find a better suited position, so that they are pushed to grow in a way that is going to give them a better life. If we always tolerate people's bad behavior, we're not doing them any favors. We're not forcing them to either move out of your space or grow. So sometimes you got to do the hard things, but we do it as a loving hard, what I call loving hard truths. So this is where you're going to shine. This is what you want to own. You double down in these areas. And this is where that saying, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, comes from, is when you are operating in that lead space. Now, grow. Grow is something that maybe you have a joy for. It's those new ideas that my clients come to me with, like, hey, I have this new idea. What do you think about? And this is that place where maybe something brings you joy and restoration. It could be an income stream, or it could be something that's going to really like make your business pop. It could be something that only you can do, but you're not very good at yet. Like maybe it terrifies you to speak, but if you did, it would really help your business. That would be a great thing to grow in the grow pile. And what you'll find is that maybe it is something only you can do, but if you really got great at it and you really found what makes it joyful, then it could be something that you actually grow to love. And so grow is things that are not your strength, but it's where you're going. It's where you want your life to be, whether it could be your business, it could also be your lifestyle. And so in this space, it's really hard sometimes to prioritize the grow, because you have to be willing to suck at it for a little while. You have to give yourself the space to practice it and give yourself grace for not being so good at the beginning. Perfectionists have a really hard time with the grow category, because you want to, if you identify as a perfectionist, you want things to be perfect before you emerge and other people see it, out of that fear and self-protection of being judged or rejected for what you're doing. And so the thing is, you will put off and procrastinate something that you want to grow into because you don't want to suck at it. So to effectively go where you want to go, though, you've got to overcome. You've got to realize that even if you are judged, you're probably going to be judged by people who you don't actually have a lot of respect for and don't hold in high regard, but you're literally prioritizing people who will never do business with you, people who you don't hold the same values as, people who are not your people, over where you want to go. Like you're prioritizing those people over that. So grow is something that oftentimes gets pushed to the back corner also when you're busy. Like when your business is really doing well and you've got too many things that you're doing that aren't the most effective use of your time, and you haven't effectively delegated, or you haven't pulled the trigger to outsource because of probably some big assumption that's happening. When you have a lot on your plate, grow is going to be the first thing that you toss out. And so again, you'll find that your business goes to a certain plateau or your life, even your life feels like plateaued because you're not giving yourself any space to grow. And so at every phase, all 5 of the different outcomes that you would do with the task, if there is a resistance, like I don't have the money to outsource or delegate, I don't have the money to do that, that's a math problem. And that's why inside the Exponential Entrepreneur, we have the Financial Leadership Lab that's led by Jen Boss, who does the monthly money talks with Zen Jen, because she makes the financials super zen, very approachable, not overwhelming. Even if you're not someone who, as the CEO, really enjoys being in the numbers and the financials. And when cash is flush, life is easy. And when it's not, you're like, I don't want to even pay attention. She really works with you on your financial leadership. And we go through how you build your financial capacity for these types of things. How do you actually allocate money appropriately to hiring and delegating? Because a lot of times what people are doing is they're taking resources that should be for outsourcing and delegating, and they are throwing it into additional strategy to learn how to do something themselves better. And that is you trying to do everything yourself is getting in your way. So that's one of the things that comes up also as like a hindrance for people in these categories. And literally I've gone through and with the work that we do with Immunity to Change, which relates to the big assumptions that I was talking about earlier and rewiring the brain, developing the leadership skills to hold boundaries, which is what you need in order to be okay. Set expectations is what you expect of other people and hold people accountable. Then you develop those leadership skills in the relational capacity, and then working on the strategy that is needed to make this all come together. People prioritize money-making strategies when what you really need are good, solid business strategies, solid business practices. And most entrepreneurs are not business people. They are a person who has a passion, who saw a need, who wanted to go out and make a difference and create a lifestyle for themselves that would create freedom and flexibility and security and the autonomy to do things with who they want, where they want, when they want, and no cap to their income. Only you cap your own income with your capacity. And so a lot of the things that people are trying to solve with money-making strategies, lead generation strategies, negotiation strategies, Instagram strategies, all the different things that people invest in, AI training, those things all have a place. But when we're doing them so that we can become more expert to do it ourselves, that's going to limit you. And so what you really need are solid business strategies. And those are all the things that we work on inside of the Exponential Entrepreneur, the Conscious Edge. So if you would like my capacity decision guide that will literally walk any task or obligation that you have in your business or life through a decision tree, it's going to ask you a series of questions. You're going to filter out what doesn't belong on your plate. Either now you just park it or you release it permanently. Or if it's essential and it needs to be on your plate and you figure out, do I outsource it, delegate it, lead it, or grow in this area? If you want access to that capacity decision guide that has that decision tree in there to help take some mental load off of you, what you're going to do is you're going to go to consciousedge.com/decision. I'll link it in the show notes for you. And that is going to help you decide what to do with everything on your plate. And then once you figure out what to do with it in one of those 5 categories, whatever resistance comes up for you, whatever problem you can't solve, we can work through that. That is just some mindset shifts, some rewiring of the brain, some leadership skills, some good solid business strategies that we cover. We can work out why something you're not able to execute maybe, or are having trouble executing on those suggestions that we give you. So with all of that being said, I can't wait for you to see the decision guide, and I'm sending you so much love. And if Jonathan were here, he would say, be well. Thanks for listening to the Conscious Edge podcast. Make sure you subscribe and take a moment to be kind and share this episode with someone you care about. Leave a review to help us bring more compassionate leaders building businesses and creating wealth to the table. And for show notes, head over to consciousedge.com/podcast. This podcast and the linked materials are presented solely for general information, educational, and entertainment purposes and should not be taken as personal or medical advice or any kind of mental health treatment. Please consult a medical or mental health professional if you feel you need such services. Please be advised that all investing and entrepreneurial endeavors involve risk, and the use of the education and information on this podcast and linked materials is at the user's own risk.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.